Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Day After podcast on our sub-show Pixar Sunday, where we watch and review every Pixar film in chronological order. On this episode, we had the pleasure of watching and discussing 2017's Cars 3, directed by Brian Fee, and a direct sequel to 2006's Cars.
So there's there's the old joke that here's Cars 3, sorry about Cars 2. Because this movie really does pretend that that second one never existed. It's pretty much a direct sequel to the first one.
There's an absolute, and you see what caused it. You didn't bat an eye when I made that joke because it
No.
really is 100% true.
Yeah, that's absolutely what happened, and like you can make that joke if you want, but like this movie. It's a fact. Pretends Cars 2 never existed.
It's almost in a vacuum, and I was worried because we watched the first time we watched Cars 3, it was under a let's just do it to say we did it setup, just to say we saw Cars 3.
Yeah, and
go ahead.
We weren't really expecting much of it, and we kind of left with mixed feelings about it. And watching it again, I have similar mixed feelings.
I have more diverse mixed feelings. Nothing in this movie is middle of the road. I find that it was well executed or poorly executed.
Yeah. So one thing I said at the very beginning of this, as Lightning McQueen is starting to get outpaced by all these new techie cars, this is the first movie of the Cars franchise where it bothers me that they're cars.
I disagree, but this is a really good discussion.
So that's why this is my opinion and not a fact. So I know most people got there before me, but growing up with family who liked NASCAR and having an understanding of the rules. Number one, NASCAR stock cars are very heavily regulated. There's not a lot of technology you can put into them and still be within the league. And number two, I like this idea of athletes in a sport getting outpaced by the younger competition. But like, these are cars. Like, these are somebody else made technology to make this thing run better. Yet it's also alive. So I'm like, are these new techie cars, were they born this way? Like, are they just born better, or did they train more? Like, it's really confusing that it's a technological thing that makes them better at what I consider to be a physical thing in this world.
Here's my point of view. I think that any road that walks down the idea that the Cars universe has a one-to-one mapping to the human universe is just a road to disaster.
And I'm not asking it to be one-to-one, and I would never do that. I'm just saying this is the first time where I'm like, oh yeah, all these new stock cars are coming out. People are inventing new things. Wait, no, they're not, because they're live.
Well, I in some ways, I think you can reaffirm yourself, and this movie as a whole is an exploration. God, I hate saying that a Cars movie is an exploration. I hate saying those in the same sentence because these are really flat movies, but it is an exploration about what you can do to be better, and when you just admit that you're outclassed in every way.
Yeah, and again, I like that there. It's just, I am almost not prevented, but there's a buffer between me and the message it's trying to send with the world it chooses to put itself in.
And I won't fault you at all for
being... And that, I think, is a problem.
I won't fault you at all for this being where you draw... Not where you draw the line, because that implies in like an objective affront to your senses. This is where it stopped. I think that it worked for me because of the following anecdote I talked to you about during the movie I'm going to share now. Tony Hawk is credited with the first 900, the first spin, and then do, I think it's 2.5 turns on a single jump. And it was monumental. Nobody had ever come close. And then in the generation after him, you have kids that are sub 16 years old who are doing it on the reg.
Mm-hmm.
It's just general in sports that the people that come after you are taller, stronger, faster.
Yeah, I just don't know that Cars was the way to do that, but that's fine. That's the route it chooses to go, and it's fine. It's kind of odd for me. But odd in an uncanny valley way, not odd in a movie breaking for me.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I do find it interesting, your anecdote with Tony Hawk, because pretty much everybody who's ever touched a skateboard respects Tony Hawk. Nobody respects Lightning on the racetrack today. He has his little friends, his little rivals that are then retired for these new space age cars. And these new cars don't really give a shit about him. In fact, some of them are openly hostile.
Um, Jackson Storm was written well first, but he gets in the way of maybe my favorite motif in this movie, and that is sarcastic like Jackson Storm, or completely genuine like other times in the movie, is people saying, "Wow, you're a legend. I used to watch you growing up.
Hmm.
Oh my god, living legend. That sounds like I'm dead, but here I am."
Yeah, yeah, and I like how in this world both exist. Like Lightning has people that he's really touched, and he also has this asshole who couldn't give a shit about him,
But
and who acts very much like Lightning did in the first movie.
but what it is I okay, bring it together. It feels what you could see in a sense of subtlety that's very unusual for the Cars universe. After the second or third time it happens, Lightning makes this face that says, "I shouldn't be insulted by that. Why did that rub me the wrong way?"
Yeah. Well, yeah, and this movie is a real interesting treatise on microaggressions. Like even Cruz, whose trainer, who's
Hmm.
trying to help him out, is like, "No, you need a drip pan, and we're gonna start you off at 5 miles per hour."
Okay,
And
okay.
sorry,
No, no, no. You brought me back. I was on the fence, but yeah, you're right. It just
it's yeah, it's a weird, interesting thing. Um, so where else did I want to go with this? I mentioned that all three of the Cars movies are very, very different. And I refuse to give this movie the pass of, oh, Cars 3, thank God it's just not Cars 2. Thank God Jackson Storm isn't Francisco Bernoulli or Chuck Hicks. Like, no, I'm not gonna give this movie that pass.
you feel like it has to earn its own merits.
Right. And I think it should. And in some cases it does, and in some cases it doesn't. But all the Cars movies are very different. The first one is the death of the American small town told through racing. The second movie is a spy movie, is whatever. But this movie is really about racing as a sport. It's not about where Lightning McQueen comes from. It's not about how racing is tied to American culture. It is about the evolution of auto racing in the United States.
Well, uh, if I can, I was fighting myself. I thought maybe this movie is on par, possibly better than the original Cars. And there's
Hmm.
a moment we'll go over later that shut the door firmly. This is the middle child of the Cars franchise.
Yeah.
What I like though is it did things that I was upset at the first Cars for not doing. You feel like when you watch the first Cars that it uses the NASCAR setting as an excuse for something that a car would want to be good at. Like he learns to
Yeah.
take it slow. What would a car want to do that he has to learn to just chill out?
Yeah.
But Cars one feels like it almost wastes a perfectly good plot. Like there's such a steeped, storied history in NASCAR and NASCAR racing. It goes way farther back than any of plebeian me or my friends know. It's steeped in all these references that John Lasseter, who didn't work on this project, really strongly believed in.
Yeah, and they do try to touch on that here. You know, they go back to Thompsonville where Doc raced, and you get to meet all these great racing legends that don't mean a lot to us, but they mean a lot to Lightning. And it might mean somebody who might mean those names might mean more to somebody who is into racing. I can't go into all the car puns. Um, but it is this odd little, yeah, it's an interesting way to tell the story. Another issue I had with the movie is that I feel like movies, especially lately, are getting too dense. We all have to be Avengers, where like 20 things in the plot have to be going on all at the same time.
Hmm.
Um, and so I really like this story of Lightning McQueen going back to Doc's roots and figuring out how to beat the rookies in the same way Doc would have had he been given the chance. And he's seizing that chance in a way Doc couldn't. I think that's really interesting, really cool, and that's what a lot of the movie is about. Less interested in him becoming a coach in general because I find coach stories really fucking boring.
It feels similar, and I don't want Toy Story fans to get offended. I'm just here commenting and contrasting things, but it feels him becoming a coach feels like the Andy's toys being given to Bonnie. It's a different path, but your story here is over.
But Toy Story knew not to delve into a whole side story of what Bonnie does with these toys after she has them. They have the shorts for that. This movie tries to tell the story of him being a coach and the story of him returning to Doc's roots at the same time. And it doesn't work.
I don't think that. Otherwise, what do you fill the movie with? Because you.
No, I think there's a decent story in Lightning McQueen returning to Doc's roots and figuring out how to run it there. Why is Cruz and her struggle and her story need to be here?
Does it feel additionally bloated because that third act in the coaching segments felt really clumsily handled?
Yeah. The third act of this movie is a fucking mess.
Okay, do you think that if it was rewritten, the entire coaching finale, that it could have gelled better for you?
No, I think that if you had taken the coaching finale out, there's a very, very good movie here.
But I I think that the idea of coaching doesn't have to be the end. Like when Lightning McQueen moves on to something else, what that something else is doesn't matter as much to me.
Yeah, and it doesn't really matter to me either. I would feel like if when Toy Story 3, like if it was just hinted at, like Cruz is showing consistent like strides toward becoming a good racer, and they do that very well. And Lightning McQueen, after his big race, is like, all right, I've fulfilled this part of my life, I'm gonna move on and become a coach now. That's an okay ending. That's an okay way to take that. To have Cruz replace him in the last race and hit all of the story beats and all of the lessons that Lightning should have done doesn't work for me. Because then what was the point of Lightning McQueen going through all that training and learning about drag through Smokey and I this stopped becoming kind of Lightning's story there. And I'm not saying Cruz is in the way. I like her as a character. I'm so glad she's voiced by somebody I've never heard of. Because that would have been really distracting. And I do think coaching and Cruz's story is a good way for Lightning to go, but I don't think. I think we spend too much time on that. We lose what I wanted out of the other plot.
Let me take a break quickly just to discuss a fairly easy round of Pixar Mainstays where we discuss elements of Pixar movies that show up in nearly every entry. John Ratzenberg takes a third turn as Friendly Mac, the delivery transportation vehicle.
Yeah, he's Lightning McQueen's trailer.
He's a good dude. A113 gets its own shot as Sterling's office number.
Yeah, it actually lingers there for several seconds.
Yeah, I do. It was a very sharp scene. I do like that. If you're keeping an eye out during the Crazy 8 scene, Pizza Planet Truck is there getting his ass beat.
And then his rocket flies off.
So they're like, I got a souvenir. Is that part of him? Other people are horrified. Just don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Just scraped up part of its skull. It's fine.
So when I found that when the first teaser for this movie came out, it is just a short scene of McQueen's car flipping in the air very quietly. And I made the joke, Cars 3, sorry about Cars 2, but apparently there was a meme shortly going around for a small amount of time that, holy shit, this is unnecessarily dark, like they're trying to get us to forget about Cars 2.
Yeah.
And it is it's fairly unflinching in terms of the family friendliness of the original Cars, where we go, no, you're getting old. Like, not you're gonna die, but like you're clearly fading. And I think that it helps in the characterization of Jackson Storm to know that he's so much better than everyone. And you mentioned in the final race, Jackson Storm is far and away.
Yeah, he's completely ahead of the pack, several car lengths above everybody. It's only when he slows down to make fun of Cruz that he actually loses that lead. But I just that last act is a mess.
And we'll get to the last act. I'm not quite ready to bitch yet. I like that this movie is me finding out I hate Francesco Bernoulli. Francesco Bernoulli is the Italian primary villain of Cars 2 if you're focusing only on Lightning McQueen's story. He's a very boastful Italian man, and his scenes boasting at Lightning McQueen go on too long. He's a very empty, hollow character. for how much time we waste.
Yeah, he's just Chuck Hicks, but more.
Chick Hicks, eat your heart out. But Jackson Storm, he has receipts to back it up, and he's just quietly better. You don't have to spend extended scenes where he bitches out McQueen. He can just microaggress like that. Say, "Oh, I my dad watched you in your rookie years."
Yeah. Yeah, and it's very interesting. Jackson is written very well as this villain, and they don't spend too much time on him, which is very nice. Side note, I'm also glad they don't spend too much time on Mater. Oh my god, they learned how to shut him up.
This is interesting. Here's the thing: is that I understand that he sells toys. I get that.
Yeah, kids love him. I get it.
If Finding Nemo is the highest selling DVD of all time, this is the most profitable Pixar film by, I would assume, quite a large margin, even though I haven't done the math. There are scenes where it definitely feels like they are trying to get their Mater quota in, and I didn't hate it.
Yeah, in fact, Mater even has one really, really good scene where Lightning calls him out of desperation, and he's like, "Oh, you should go to Thompsonville."
Yeah, whatever. We're gonna meet Smokey, and that is where I'll leave it to you. Would you like to talk about him learning about the old racers first, or would you like to bitch about the ending first?
Let's talk about the old racers, because chronologically that comes first.
I like that.
Because we're skipping over it, the Demolition Derby scene is okay. It serves its purpose. The scene with him and Cruz is really, really good. Again, I think there's stuff to do there that gets fucked up in the third act. I remember when we saw this the first time, I thought the old racers portion took up way more time than it actually did.
I have way more positive feelings this time because having had a couple years go by in between watching Cars 3, all I remember was a lot of time wasted at the new fancy Rusty's Center. There are jokes there that were just the very boilerplate jokes.
Yeah, and I actually had the opposite. I completely forgot about the Rusty's Center, and I was like, why the fuck are we spending all these time with these old hats?
But I love the old hats. It is so rare, I guess, for this action-y of a Pixar film to have these really long, colored-in dialogue scenes. You go to you get to go to these middle-of-nowhere diners in what's the name of the city?
Thompsonville, I think.
Yeah, some old town, and it doesn't have to have that hillbilly bumpkin feeling. It can feel a little more refined, and that's neither here nor there. But you get to meet these old people who tell stories, and it really fleshes in this NASCAR history of racing feeling, which I found fascinating, and it's so easy to shit on NASCAR, but when you go back and look at the history, it has a really storied history that I am shocked that John Lasseter, having left the Pixar project, had as little hand in this as he did, because this screams Cars. This screams everything I loved about the first Cars.
And for me, this didn't go far enough. I liked the folksy Americana feel. I don't like that this was painted as the whole of American auto racing is just like this one glory period that was happened and then was over and then has moved on to this new technical stuff that isn't as good as us old timers. Whereas Cars, the original Cars, it tied racing into the growth, not of the American West, but like the growth of Americanism and Americana. And I really, really like that. And I can't fault Cars 3 for not being Cars 1, but I feel like there's so much other time spent on old person jokes and training jokes and trying to shove in this new character that the charm that you love gets lost for me.
And you might be thinking, if you're praising this so much, why doesn't it hold up to the original Cars? And we're not there yet.
No, we're not there yet.
I didn't like the training jokes. I felt like the old people jokes enough anymore, and you might have started to push it for me. But the stories they tell, I found that in a world that so many people have a problem with, this suit of irony. Like, oh, do they have car babies? If it breaks down like that, it's hard to get such a filled-in colorful past out of such a storied history sport. I can talk about Cruz now.
I kind of said my piece about Cruz. I like this idea. I like this dynamic between her and Lightning McQueen. I think too much time is spent on her at the cost of more interesting things.
It's a little brutal at the beach when you first get to know her.
Yeah.
And the training jokes, the hippy dippy meditation stuff, it doesn't scan 100% for me. By that I mean all the stuff that takes place at the Shiny Rusty Center.
She's a little quip machine for a little while.
A little while, yeah.
Yeah. She was like, when Smokey's like, oh, you gotta do this, and she's like, I told him that.
Yeah, it's a little. She's very bright eyed, very naive. Again, thanks for not being voiced by Selma Hayek.
Yeah, or whatever. We don't hate you, Selma Hayek. I'm so sorry. Like, but I don't have a problem with Cruz, and I think again that's a good place for Lightning's story to go. But I wish she didn't feel shoehorned into this movie.
I would see where you were going with shoehorned. I remember the first time her sudden upset at Lightning McQueen and sarcastically telling McQueen about how she wanted to be a racer and she couldn't do it. I felt like that came out of nowhere because I wasn't as receptive to her bright-eyed character as I was, the first time.
Right.
But knowing now that she was going to have that conversation, it makes the "what are we doing" at the Crazy 8 mud rally that much more impactful because she has never gotten to do this.
Yeah, if that scene, and if that good emotional scene between Lightning and Cruz wasn't there, that entire demo derby scene is stupid.
Yes.
It's dumb, campy, easy to publish fun. And in a movie that takes so many of its other scenes so seriously, it felt really out of place.
The dark scene felt really out of place. Especially, I mean, it was cute to get her back together.
Yeah.
To make up, but it reutilized some of those hippy dippy training jokes, which didn't work for me.
And again, when Lightning comes back and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm gonna do a little dance just like you told me," it feels a little too like, "Oh, Coach is acting like a dad. He's so
very,
silly."
very dad jokey.
And it's just, oh god, I don't like that kind of narrative.
And right after that, we have a scene where like he's done his last lap at a very famous racetrack, and they say it's time to go, race. And Lightning McQueen has this look on his face like he's about to die.
Right, because he did everything right. He went through all the training. He had what you expect to be his fuck yeah moment, and she still beat him.
Yeah.
And that's, it was him realizing, like, gall, I'm really not going to be able to do this anymore. Which is what I think they were wanting me to harken back to when he does decide to give up his spot for Cruz. But I just, ugh.
Let's talk. I'm ready.
We're quite a bit into the review now.
I'm ready now to discuss an extremely clumsy third act. In the middle of a race, here's the spark notes. Lightning McQueen decides that he is going to mid-race give his number to Cruz so that she can race in her first very big event and not just a mud rally. And so mid-race, they put brand new racing tires on her, paint the 95, and she gets off on her first race. It is a neat idea. The reveal and the cute lines that precede it need a ton of work.
Yeah, and again, to me, you ruined what could have been some really, really cool scenes with Lightning by trying to shoehorn this other character in there. And she says, like, right as they're painting the 95 on her, she's like, Lightning, I can't make you give up your last chance. And he's like, no, but I can give you your first chance. And both John and I just went,
that sucked. That sucked so much. Holy shit, that was bad.
I get what you were trying to do, but you were trying to turn what should have been a movie-long plot into an act plot. And it was not working.
And there's I wanted show, don't tell. If a past scene made the tractor tipping scene from 2 movies ago bearable by having it be a teaching tool that we're gonna go through the open window, and when McQueen says go through the window. She says that, and just in case you had left for a piss break, when that happens,
turn into the tractors.
All of the cars turn into neon-colored tractors,
and she's like, "Oh yeah, I remember this."
And okay, as cute as the Hudson scenes are, we have to have that imagine spot in case people forgot.
Yeah.
Which is especially upsetting because the people that go to see Cars 3 are the people that saw Cars 1 and forgave Cars 2.
Yes. Or their parents dragging their kids to see a racing movie. Yeah, and there's just, again, like, I feel like this could have been a really, really good conclusion moment for Lightning. And again, I felt like the whole movie, like when they're driving through the woods and Lightning learns about moonshine, or when he's going through the tracks and Smokey's telling him all these different new tactics, and he's like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I'm gonna use old school ways to beat the new kids." And that during every single one of those scenes, the movie reminds you, "And Cruz is here! And Cruz is here!
And Cruz is here!
And Cruz is here!" And then at the end of the movie, it's like, "And now Cruz gets a conclusion."
That's Cruz's conclusion. Cruz could have used another couple minutes in the oven.
She could have used another movie.
So could Sterling. Holy cow.
I feel like this would have been oh god, we didn't even talk about Sterling. But I feel like, again, this would have been a great movie to have all the Lightning and Doc Hudson scenes as one movie and make whatever's going on between him and Cruz like a short or its own thing or something. But god.
I think that one of the best things that happened to this franchise is the death of the voice actor who voiced the Hudson Hornet, which is sad and upsetting for me to say.
Mm-hmm.
But it's this idea that, like, I never got to know that, you know, my mentor and legacy partner thought the world of me.
Mm-hmm. And that is a really cool reveal. And again, it doesn't really matter because Lightning doesn't use any of Doc's faith in him to do anything.
I disagreed with you 27 minutes ago, and I agree now. This would have made a great coaching being the third movie and the second movie being the Jackson Storm We All Get Old segment.
Yes.
You've made your point successfully, and you've successfully won me on.
Thank you. I didn't have to yell at you like I did with Social Network.
Oh, that's really interesting. Okay, damn.
And again, I don't want to fault the movie for what I want it to be instead of what it is, but I'm faulting the movie for what it is because you had a good movie here and you just chose to shove another movie on top of it.
It was so close to being as good as Cars, and then it used a bunch of technicality loopholes.
Yeah.
Okay, guys.
Kyle Petty, fucking the Dynaco guy, the Texas guy comes over and is like, "Hey, let's make a deal, billionaire to billionaire, and we buy all of Lightning shit so he can race again, and Sterling Silver doesn't ever have to change."
Guys, I will allow the technicality that allowed Cruz to race. It's silly and dumb, but it gets its purpose across. What I do not like about those other loopholes is that they close problems I didn't have.
And they're just mentioned. They happened off screen, and then they're just mentioned. And it's like, "I bought Rusty's. She races for Dynaco now."
Longhorn Dynaco owner shows up at the Radiator Springs Butte racetrack just to say that I bought a bunch of shit so you could race. I don't care. I loved learning about this. I don't care enough about NASCAR to give a shit about what happens in the Pixar version of NASCAR. Final thoughts. No, you go first.
Well, okay, so one thought I want to say on that before we go on to the final thoughts.
Please.
Those little scenes and those little lines have the same impact as if you made an NFL movie and spent like 10 minutes talking about what owners do. Nobody cares. Kids don't give a shit about what the rich billionaires who own these NFL teams, and people don't give a shit about the teams who own a NASCAR.
I was comparing this movie to Moneyball a couple of times.
Yeah, no. Don't do Moneyball.
No. I enjoyed myself. It's not like I didn't put the air quotes up. I gave a sad about it, but I did appreciate this, and I think it says something about Pixar that we just got half an hour of discussion out of it.
I like parts of this movie. To not acknowledge its faults is doing Pixar and the movie itself a disservice. The parts that it did well, it did really well. There's a great movie, not a great movie. Maybe no, I'll go and say it. There's a great movie hiding in here.
Yes.
That is not allowed to be what it could be, and I think that's upsetting.
That is upsetting. Guys, I hate to end on a downer note for what is a monster-length podcast for us. Thank you for joining us on Pixar Sunday as we watched and discussed Cars 3. 1 week from today is a very fun episode.
Here's your happy note.
Join us for 2017's Coco, directed by Lee Unkrich.
Probably one of the only movies besides the Toy Story franchise that John and I have seen multiple times.
It's the anti-Wreck-It Ralph. It gets better every time. Every time.